We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel, ring the notification bell, smash the like button, share the video if you want to support this independent national college football's rebel outpost with a donation to help us keep the lights on and grow the channel. Just hit that $sign where you make a comment and I will get these super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. It has been a dynamic first week in April. First 3 days in April. We just got the President Trump executive order. We're going to talk about that at the beginning of the monologue. It's basically meaningless. On the face of it, it doesn't mean anything. An executive order is basically directing agencies within the executive branch to do what the order tells them to do. So the Department of Education might be able to do this. Somebody might be able to do that, which is in the executive branch. But at the end of the day, the lawsuits are going to come and everything's going to be washed away with the executive order. However, I do understand it's the attempt to spurn Congress into action, to spurn Congress in the action, the Pass the Score Act, the Pass the Score Act. Did you all listen to Senator Cory Booker today talking about we shall not pass the Score Act? Now, I know he's just one senator, but they're already playing a political foot. The Score Act is almost completely dead. Almost completely dead. If it isn't dead already. And hold on one second. Hold on one second. There was a Jose says Cory Booker is correct. The Score Act is DOA. Let me thank you so much for the incredible thank you so much for the super chat, Ricky Tungate, Mr. Hoosier. I'll get to that in a moment. I will get to that in a moment. Thank you so very much. Mountaineer memes. Mountaineer memes. North Carolina being rejected by two different Big 12 coaches may accelerate the ACC collapse. The answer is I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. Probably not. But I don't know, Mountaineer memes. But I will have to say that question, that very question, that innocent looking that comment in the chat room leads directly to the big story that we got for you today. How the Notre Dame Fighting Irish Independence Bridge is falling down, it is collapsing, it is crumbling. And that question from Mountaineer memes, and I know it sounds kind of weird right now, but you got to give me an opportunity to explain later in the monologue, plays directly. What is going on at North Carolina? What is going on in the ACC when it comes to their Olympic sports? And what might be happening here in the near future, we're going to get to it. Plays a part of Notre Dame's what they're thinking of. Again, here at Peek Around the Corner, we are very fortunate to have formed a source at Notre Dame many years ago. He was the one that gave us the information about Notre Dame's men's hockey program, Notre Dame talking to Jim Delaney. We broke that story years before we had this YouTube channel. We broke it on Minnesota 247. We broke it on X. We broke it. If we would have had this channel, we would have broken it on this channel at that point. This is the same source, the same person. I don't normally, to be honest with you, I'm not normally the one who has these conversations. He's part of the BTM and Associates, that group of people. Not a chatter behind the curtain type of person. But I did have the honor, the privilege. I had a long discussions with this person 2 days ago. And I was going to bring it up. It was going to be the main story of yesterday's live show. But we had a 2-hour and 45-minute live show yesterday, and we didn't even get to the Notre Dame stuff because so many things is happening. But let's get back to the picture real quick here. You see that Big Ten silo on the left-hand side of the picture? You see that SCC silo on the right side of the picture. And then that bridge, which is called the Irish Independence Bridge, has absolutely crumbled to the ground. It is very interesting. This conversation went in a direction I was not anticipating. The reasons, there was a couple big reasons why this bridge is collapsing, this independent bridge for Notre Dame between the two possible silos, which I think are being created. And it went in and it talked about things that I've never heard of before. Well, one of the things I've never heard of before. But he explained it in a way that even the original Minnesota moron could understand it. And I have the ability, no information, this information is not embargoed. It is not embargoed. So I'm going to give it to you guys today on this live show. That's going to be the main story of our show. We're only going to spend, you know what? Let's get to these incredible super chats. We've got more to get to here. Everybody buckle up. Everybody buckle up. It is the 3-year anniversary of the gold and blue dude leaving us, Chris Petrie, off to a much better place. I was just talking to the little general last night. I said, tomorrow is the 3-year anniversary that Mr. Petrie left us. Zero whiz. If GBD was alive, he would be laughing right now. I heard it's been 3 years since his passing. R.I.P. Gold and Blue Dude. Yeah. 3 years, April 3rd, 2023. And I remember when I heard it, me and the little general were out, and I had to go to the men's room. And I got out of the men's room and saw the wife down the hall. We were not at home. We were out that night. And I just looked at my phone and I saw that everyone was talking about how Chris Petrie passed away. And right away I thought, oh my goodness. For whatever reason, I was thinking car crash, whatever, oh no. And then I heard about what happened. And and the little general will let you, she would tell you that. I didn't quit thinking about it all night. I did a song with saluting Chris Petrie, Country Roads. I did a PATC rendition of it, and yeah, he was a major force in college football YouTube channels. I learned a lot from him, but I am reminded, and I was reminded yesterday, that I still have more to learn. First of all, I want to apologize here to Mr. Jason Spangler, Kansas Jayhawk. He said something in the chat room which I interpreted as he was accusing me of being a grifter when all I was doing was reporting on all these stories that we were going through. But he was not calling me the grifter. He was talking about Paul Feinbaum. So he is still part of the family. I unhit him. We did have a brief conversation on X. So Jason Spangler, I do apologize. I acted way too quickly, way too rashly. My apologies. Hopefully he's listening to this. He can get on here. He can get in the chat room and he can bark at me. He can yell at me all he wants. He gets an absolute free pass. First of all, Zero Wiz, Mr. Sparty, I want to thank you for being a member for 2 years, 24 months. 24 months, you are officially knighted, cloak, and Dagger, Cloak, and Dagger. My goodness. Massive super chat. Holy smokes. Starting us off bigly, big time. The reigning, defending Big Ten champ, national champ, Mr. Hoosier, Ricky Tungate, $50 holler from the state of Indiana. Happy Good Friday to the PATC geniuses. Happy Good Friday to you. Happy Good Friday to you. As they say back in the day, not back in the day, they say it now. If you are a Christian, you kind of understand what I'm about to say. The Friday was rough, but remember, Sunday is a coming. Sunday is a coming. We all have our Fridays, but nothing like our Lord Jesus Christ, who had to carry the cross. We all have our Fridays where we are carrying a heavy burden, but someday our Sunday is coming. Just remember that. Thank you, Ricky Tungate. Thank you for the incredible generosity. Unbelievable generosity. Thank you, very kind, sir. Very much appreciate it. Very much appreciate it. I don't know about the genius part. Happy Good Friday to the PATC geniuses. I don't know about the geniuses part because a lot of you are doubting Greg the Gold this year. You keep thinking back to last year. This is a new year. This is 2026. I have grown up. I have matured. I have become more logical. I'm not so emotional anymore on my picks against the spread. I don't do them out of spite. Completely logical. I have become the one myself who is not the brightest bulb in the refrigerator. I just happen to know where every refrigerator is in every building that I walk into. I'm turning into an intellectual. How about them apples? Do you believe me? I am turning into an intellectual when it comes to talking about anything, especially college football. Thank you, Ricky Tungate. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Massive super chat. We got Jimmy Austin, the Duck, sent a gifted membership. The Big Gun Shop, the Red Raider Big Gun Shop. I'm only going to talk about 1 minute about the Brett Yormark and Cody Campbell situation. I promise you, Red Raider. All the Red Raiders are upset with me. I'm only going to take 1 minute. I'm only going to take 1 minute and talk about it. But Big Gun Shop, you have been gifted a membership by the incredible generosity of Mr. Duck, Jimmy Austin. Both of you, Jimmy and Big Gun Shop, both of you are united. Cloak and Dagger. You know what that means, Big Gun Shop. You can go to our library of episodes, watch all the episodes, including members only episode, Early Peak, Cloak and Dagger. Thank you, Jimmy. A Big Gun Shop, when you get an opportunity, please say thank you to Jimmy for his incredible generosity. Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate it, sir. Very much. I do not appreciate the 42-13 beatdown last year when the Oregon Ducks put in their third stringers in the beginning of the third quarter, for God's sakes. I did not appreciate that, but I do appreciate your generosity and you coming on into the chat room. Appreciate it. And then Jimmy Austin became a member for 25 months. Rest in peace, Gold Blue Dude. The GOAT of college realignment talk. Absolutely. Absolutely. You are knighted Cloak and Dagger, Jimmy Austin. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And yes, Golden Blue Dude. Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And we've got Larry Andrick The Mountaineer, $10 holler. My goodness, Larry, thank you so very much. Thank you very much. I know a lot of Mountaineers, you're thinking about Golden Blue Dude. You're thinking about Rich Rodriguez. You're thinking about all the disrespect that West Virginia is getting. But that's nothing new. The Mountaineers are underdogs. And you love it. You love every second of it. I'm sure that you want there to be one year where you're the favorite coming into the season. But this is the Mountaineer life. You're the underdogs. You're going to punch above your weight class. And the Mountaineers are going to scare some people this year. Larry, West Virginia is going to scare some people this year. Let's go. Let's go. Thank you for the $10 holler. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. The Ducks won't beat Minnesota this year. You mean, Jimmy, that Oregon's going to lose to Minnesota in the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis? I agree with you, Jimmy. That's the first time that Jimmy and I have agreed with each other. Woo! Okay. Let's do a roll call. But we got a big show. We're going to talk about the Irish and the Independence Bridge that is collapsing. We'll talk about a minute about the Brett Yormark and Cody Campbell situation. We're going to talk about the presidential executive order for about 3 minutes. But we're going to go back and talk about this Sportico article on the Ivy League's victory. The Ivy League's victory. Now, if you did not watch episode 480, shame on you. We released 480 earlier today. But don't fret it. We're going to talk about it during this live show because it is major news. The Ivy League won their case. And the case was some players, some former student athletes went to the courts, went after the Ivy League to say this was an antitrust violation because you did not have given the option of having sports scholarships at the Dartmouth, Brown, Cornell, the 8 Ivy League universities. And the courts ruled in favor of the Ivy League. Why did they rule in favor of the Ivy League? I'll give you a little bit of a hint, but we're going to go through the article. Because it's a conference. It's a conference. The Ivy League, according to the courts, the circuit judge, it's a conference. It can make its own rules. You don't have to go to an Ivy League school. You can go to Virginia. You can go to Michigan. You can bounce the basketball and get a great education. If you're good enough, you have that option. But the Ivy League doesn't have market power. They're not restricting you. The Ivy League is not restricting you. You don't have to go to the Ivy League because it's a conference. The NCAA, you're not going to get those protections. But a conference, you are. Just like the Alston case. In this case, the cases are stacking up. The precedents are being stacked up. And we're going to go through it real quick. But it all means one thing. Conference governance is now the chalk. On April 3rd, 2026, PATC is declaring that conference governance is the chalk. Now, how does that look like? How extreme is this going to look like eventually? Those are the questions we do not know. Is it going to be a complete, clean breakaway? Is everybody going into a silo which is unpenetrable, where there is no windows, there is no door? Are we going to a breakaway silo in which the SEC schools are only going to play each other during the regular season? That is the most extreme case. But we are heading, in my strongly held opinion, backed up by another court case, that we are going into conference governance. And the implications on that, the ramifications on that, the ripple effect on that is indescribable. It is unknown. We don't know what we're doing. We've never been there before. Well, we were a few decades ago, but this is a completely different world. So we are going to get into that. This is another stack show on April 3rd. And how does all that affect Notre Dame? In ways that I didn't even think about. In ways that I've never even had the discussion with anybody else, but I had a certain discussion 2 nights ago with that Notre Dame source, the legendary Notre Dame source, and we are going to deliver that information to you at the back end of the monologue. Roddy Richborg is in the house. Rod Heupel is here. Outlaw Skis. Adam Briggs. The Amazing Blue. Coy. Bob Swanger. Two Master. Ron Lowney. The Big Gun Shop is now a member of the family. Daniel Gorby. Hello, PATC. Go Knowles. Jose. Hit that like button. Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina. I got a speeding ticket on Keith Jackson Parkway. Slow down. Slow down, North Carolina. Slow down. Or you might want to speed up and not get caught. Again, Ricky Tungate, thank you so much for the massive super chat. Thank you for coming on in. Appreciate it. Buckeye Greg is in the house. Rich Austin is here. Stephen Vitt, Saving College Sports. Yeah, right. Kenneth Maynor is here. Chris Brown is here. Stephen Clark, Amy, hi PATC, go Utes. Jan Uzi is in the house. 3 years ago. Yes, 3 years ago. Nittany, 89, happy Easter, Greg, and PATC friends. Thank you for coming on in. I appreciate it. Stephen Vitt, Golden Blue Dude, opened the door for many of us who aspire to make our own college sports videos. R.I.P. Rest in peace, Golden Blue Dude. Thank you, Stephen Vitt, for those kind words about our friend Chris Petrie. Two Master, Speculation Zone. Chris Petrie, Speculation Zone. Dante's Inferno Purgatory. I miss G, B, D. RT's in the house. Deadeye. Yo, Greg. Yo, Deadeye. How you doing, sir? Thanks for coming on in. Karan Shakar is here. Who else? JD Volt. We got a volunteer in the house. A volunteer is in the house. Jason Spangler, again, I said this earlier in the live show, Jason. When we started this live show, I apologize to you. I acted way too hastily. My apologize. Thanks for coming on in again. You can bark at me as much as you want. I apologize. Please give me some grace. I made a mistake. Thank you, Jason. Who else is here? Nick Kelsel, Golden Blue Dude Forever. Jay Chapman is here. The Evil Badger. Yes, I've been hearing this. 8 of his top 10 in-state recruits committed to Wisconsin. Lost one to Notre Dame, but his dad played at Notre Dame. Lost another one to the Northwestern Nerds. Are the Badgers back? Are the Evil Badgers back to rule the day in the Midwest and the upper Midwest? I think not. But the Evil Badger is gathering momentum. The Evil Badger is lathering up for the 2026 comeback of the Wisconsin Badgers. Holy smokes. Flint Dog, the Wolverine, is in the house. Flint Dog has entered the room. Notre Dame source is John Kennedy. No, it's not. John Kennedy does a great job and always Irish. Great job. B. Bean, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate it. Eric Phipps is here. Nick, the Virginia Tech Hokie. P-Traps are legendary. Virginia State Troopers. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. Thank you for forgiving me. I acted way too hastily. That is for sure. Morris Simmons. It's time for the dominoes to fall. Silo time is around the corner. Well, we'll get into it in a moment. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I do appreciate it. For those who've already donated to this program, thank you so very much. Larry Andrick, Jimmy Austin, Ricky Tungate with a massive super chat and Zero Wiz. Again, you know how it works. We got phone calls later in the program. When you give us a call at 763-260-1333, the lines are not open yet. Later in the program, when you give us a call, the floor is absolutely yours. You can talk about anything in college football. It doesn't have to be what we talked about during the monologue. Same with the super chats. Super chats supersede all other comments, and the super chats can be about anything you want to talk about at all, and we'll talk about it because of your generosity. Let's get to it, guys and gals. Guys and gals, let's get to it. First of all, not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this. But we got to talk about it. President Trump's order, his executive order, which was signed today, intends to limit athlete transfer movement, cap player eligibility, 5 years to play 5 years, require funding requirements for women in Olympic sports. I don't know how that would ever work. And regulate NIL collectives per Yahoo Sports Ross Dellinger. As an enforcement lever, past iterations of the order relied on reduction of a university federal funding and incentive for schools and conferences to abide by the concepts. Not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this. I really do want to get to phone calls. We got a couple of massive stories we got to get to before, but again, this executive order won't even come into play until August 1st. And I think by August 1st, if the score, he's trying to spurn, look, the president and people on both sides of the aisle are trying to get the SCORE Act passed, and I guess this is an attempt to get people more going and try to get it passed. And an executive order is going to be legally challenged, and it's going to be struck down because an executive order is limited to the executive branch being able to tell agencies that are under the executive branch umbrella, you can give them orders, executive orders. You can sort of go by certain judicial and legislative restrictions, possibly, if it has to do, if the issue has to do with the executive branch, the execution of the executive branch. None of this, of course, has anything to do with that. None of this is under the executive branch. College football, college sport, this is going, most of this is meaningless. Politically, it might have an impact. It might have a negative impact. I believe that everybody is reading the same tea leaves and that the SCORE Act isn't going to pass. Now, they're going to run out this ground ball. They're going to run out this ground ball, this weak ground ball to the shortstop because they spent so much time. When I say we, I mean SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, G6 conferences. They're going to run out the ground ball. They're going to make sure the shortstop throws them out, but it's probably going to be an out. It ain't going to happen. And I think everybody's getting ready to go to conference governance, where the conferences make the rules. And we'll see if that works. And we're going to get into more of that right now. But an executive order, again, I am not a believer in this. And it's not political. It's nothing against Trump. I would have said it was Joe Biden, Barack Obama, George W., George H., whoever. An executive order is incredibly limited to the executive branch, and it's going to get shot down. So that's about as much time I'm going to spend on the EO, the executive order. You can tell me how wrong I am in the chat room. In the super chat, we'll talk about it. If you want to give me a phone call and let me know how wrong I got it, go ahead, give us a call later in the program. Now, I want to get to a massive story that should be getting more coverage. I think it's not because it came out late last night, and we did an episode 480 on it. The Ivy League scores a legal win over athletic scholarships by Michael McMahon. It's a massive story, and Greg Sankey is going to use this. The Georgia president, Moorhead, is going to use this inside the SEC spring meetings. The forces that support going into their silos are going to use this story like wrapping paper. They're going to wrap everything with this wrapping paper. This is a huge story. The Ivy League won a legal victory. The Ivy League and its 8-member schools scored a significant legal win at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit on Thursday as the court affirmed the dismissal of a lawsuit challenging the league's policy of no athletic scholarships as an antitrust violation. The league's policy, given no athletic scholarships, is not an antitrust violation. In a summary order issued by Second Circuit Clerk Catherine O'Hagan-Wolf, following the review by Circuit Judges Jacobs, Wesley, and Robinson, the Second Circuit rejected the thesis of Coe. I don't know how to pronounce this. I called it Coy early in the day. Coe, we'll call it Coe and Kirk, versus Brown University, which was brought by the 2 former Brown basketball players. The case argued that the 8 Ivy League schools, Brown, Columbia, Cornell, Dartmouth, Harvard, Penn, Princeton, and Yale, joined hands to the conference to price fix the amount of money each could spend on athletic scholarships, which was $0. These schools already compete in numerous ways. They compete against each other when it comes to getting students, faculty, staff, fundraising, grants, marketing. If they could offer athletic scholarships to top recruits, some might. But the Second Circuit offered 2 basic reasons in affirming the U.S. District Judge Elvin W. Thompson's dismissal of this case in 2024. First, the Second Circuit reasoned that the plaintiffs failed to identify a relevant market or area of competition for antitrust scrutiny. High school students who excel academically and athletically can pursue enrollment at other highly selective colleges with elite sports, and that unlike the Ivy League schools, offer athletic scholarships. You did not have to go to Brown. You did not have to go to Dartmouth if you were good enough to play at Michigan, Virginia. As mentioned during the course of litigation, and listed alphabetically, Berkeley, Duke, Georgetown, Michigan, Notre Dame, Rice, Stanford, UNC, Chapel Hill, Vanderbilt, and Virginia are among the schools that have similar academic profiles as Ivy League schools that do offer athletic scholarships. Second, and buckle up, Buckle up on this. Christopher Hooter, you're absolutely correct in that super chat. Thank you so very much. I'll get to that super chat in a moment. But if you look at Christopher Hooter's super chat, he's absolutely correct. Second, the Second Circuit stressed Justice Neil Gorsuch, majority opinion in the NCAA v. Alston case, which we have talked about numerously here, which, though an antitrust defeat for the NCAA, was arguably an antitrust win for the conferences. In Alston, Gorsuch explained that the NCAA and its member institutions violated the federal antitrust law by agreeing to limit each member's opportunities to compensate college athletes for educated-related expenses. He noted, Gorsuch, that the NCAA enjoys near complete dominance of and exercises power in the relevant markets. To that point, Gorsuch noted that the NCAA has no substitutes. There's no other place to go as a student athlete. Gorsuch noted that the NCAA has no substitutes, so when it constrains educated-related compensation and benefits, it can potentially run afoul of antitrust laws. Yet, an often overlooking discussion of Alston, Gorsuch explicitly distinguished restraints imposed by the NCAA and those imposed by conferences. He distinguished those two. Gorsuch stated that the individual conferences may adopt their own rules regarding academic awards, and they may be stricter than those imposed by the NCAA. That makes sense, the Second Circuit wrote, since no individual conference, the PATC money shot of the article, and the PATC money shot of today. The Second Circuit wrote, since no individual conference enjoys the level of market dominance enjoyed by the NCAA. In other words, if the Ivy League and its members wish to not allow athletic scholarships, that is permissible under antitrust law, since it's a conference, not the NCAA. Now, can you imagine? You're sitting back there. You're the president of Georgia, Moorhead, who wants the SEC to break away from the NCAA right now. He wants to happen right now. And this ruling came down. And the reasons why this ruling came down, the president of the University of Georgia, you know what he did? You know what he sent this. He had his secretary, him or whatever. He sent this as quick as he could to Greg Sankey in the legal office at the SEC conference. Bam! There it is. More evidence, more support, more fuel for conference governance. It is coming down the tracks. And then it talks about how the Second Circuit ruling in Choi does not have precedential effect because it delivered to summary order. The ruling is an endorsement of conference autonomy. The ruling is an endorsement of conference autonomy when conferences set rules governing athletes. The ruling is an endorsement of conference autonomy when conferences set rules governing athletes. It lends support to other conferences, including the power conferences, setting their own rules. For example, and this is fine, this is the last part of the article that we'll cover. For example, if the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, issued a rule limiting transfers, NIL, eligibility, or another divisive topic, the conference would likely argue its conference-only rulemaking is protected by Alston as interpreted in this case. Who would have thought? As Christopher Hooter here in his super chat said, $2 holla. Ivy League saves college football. Go figure. Thank you for the $2 holla, Christopher Hooter, purple and gold, LSU Tiger. Everybody who supports in the SEC and the Big Ten to give up on this, to give up on the NCAA, to break away, to go on their silos. Now they've got even more of an argument, a huge argument. It's right there for everybody to see. A court ruling that used the precedent that was set by Alston. Now you've got two rulings stacking up on each other. If you do not have dominance, and look, as big and powerful as the SEC is, it does not have market dominance. It does not have market power. It doesn't. It doesn't. As big and powerful as the Big Ten is, it doesn't have market power. Even if both of those conferences expand, it ain't going to have market dominance. There's going to be other options. Now, if they combine together, I think you're going to run into problems. But I don't think the Big Ten and the SEC are going to go together for lots of different reasons. But I don't think they're going to do it. Why? Well, we'll get into that later. As strong and powerful as the SEC is, they don't have the market power. There's going to be other choices. They're not the NCAA. Do you know what this really does, in my opinion? And I'm just going to put it out there. It does a lot of things. It gives those who support a breakaway from the NCAA, it gives them even more firepower. It gives them even a better argument. But it also basically, this decision, the Ivy League decision, should absolutely destroy, disintegrate, smash into a million billion pieces the idea of a 70-team Super League under one umbrella. You're not going to be able to do a 70-team Super League. You're not going to be able to do a 50-team Super League. Unless you get that antitrust exemption. But who's going to get it? How are we going to get it? We can't get the SCORE Act passed. How are we going to get it? We're not going to get it. So if we're not going to get it, we're not going to get a Super League. You're not going to be able to make rules in a Super League like we could anyways. Like we could all get together and make rules on a 50. We can't even do it in an 18-team conference, a 16-team conference. How are we going to do it in a 50? But you're not going to, that would be too much market power. So this ruling, attached with the Alston ruling, the Super League thing, Not that it ever had much of a chance anyways, in my opinion, but that should be, people should shelve that idea. How could that possibly work without an antitrust exemption? Okay, so we had to go through that article first, right? We had to get through that article first because what we're about to talk about is the Fighting Irish. What we're about to talk about is the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. So here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll get to your phone calls. We'll get to your phone calls as soon as possible, but we gotta have a conversation just between you guys and me. No one else is listening, just you and I. Although I think this will get, I'm not gonna go there. Okay. Talking to our Notre Dame source, well-known Notre Dame source, many, many years. Long conversation 2 nights ago. And I talked about it on X. I put out just a quick little note. We could not get to it yesterday. We can get to it today, and there's no embargo on the information. There is a couple of big reasons why the Notre Dame ability to keep their quasi-football independence is in massive danger if the Big Ten and the SEC go silo. Two massive reasons that this source told us. One reason, which I did not know that was in the atmosphere. The other reason is quite logical if you think about it. I'm going to get to those two reasons. But I want to start with one of the reasons he did not mention. In fact, I thought it was going to be the big reason he said that Notre Dame football independence is screwed if the SEC goes on the silo and the Big Ten goes on the silo. I thought the Notre Dame source was going to tell me, Greg, Notre Dame is screwed because if the SEC is governing themselves and the Big Ten is governing themselves, they can keep an eye on each other. The Big Ten can keep an eye on each other. So why would they schedule Notre Dame? Why would they trust us? Nobody's going to be governing our football program. Nobody's going to be governing our football program. So why should someone play a football program when you don't know that there's not other eyes and ears looking at our program like there would be in the Big Ten and the SEC? In the SEC, other eyes would be looking at Georgia. In the Big Ten, other eyes would be looking at Michigan. In the ACC, other eyes would be looking at Florida State and Clemson, so forth. But no independent eyes would be looking at Notre Dame. That is exactly what I thought he was going to tell me. And in fact, as I often do, interrupted him before he could say a word. And I said, I think I know what you're going to tell me, blah, 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 blah. And he said, no. That is not one of the two big reasons why Notre Dame is screwed if the Big Ten goes in the silo and the SEC goes in the silo. So he explained to me, per the people that he's talking to, and these people are located in no other than South Bend, Indiana. Number one, the first reason why the Notre Dame Fighting Irish is screwed if this going in the silo with conference governance happens. Notre Dame And they've been fearing this for quite a while. And you and I have talked about it. Jack Swarbrick has talked about it in public. Bavacqua has talked about it in public. Their fear is not college football playoff access. Their fear isn't all that much when it comes to revenue right now, to be able to keep up with the SEC and the Big Ten, although that is always in the back of their mind. Their fear, if the SEC and the Big Ten goes on their own silos, is all their other sports except for the men's hockey and for the football independents. It's the teams and the sports that they sponsor in the ACC. Hold on one second, please. I got to clean something up. Hold on. My apologies for the pause. My apologies for the pause. I thank you for the super chats. I will get to your super chats after I give you the Notre Dame information. I do not want to interrupt this, but I do appreciate Christopher Hooter. Thank you so very much. And anybody else, I will get to them as quick as I possibly can. But I do not want to interrupt this information. People have been waiting on this for a couple of days. It's not the men's hockey and it's not the independent football that the first real big worry for Notre Dame is all the other sponsored sports that is under the ACC. Because Notre Dame has been fearing for a while that the ACC is slipping and sliding behind the SEC and the Big Ten and some of the Big 12 when it comes to being able to compete at a national championship level when it comes to the Olympic sports, when it comes to basketball and football. But Notre Dame is not part of the football, but mainly the Olympic sports aspect to it. We'll take the Southeastern Conference, for example. If they go to their own silos, they're going to be making rules. They're going to be making rules about the SEC teams. They're going to be making their own eligibility rules. They're going to be making their own transfer rules. They're going to be making their own compensation for players rules. Now, a lot of people outside the Southeastern Conference, people in the PATC family, in the chat room and others, talk about how the Southeastern Conference is going to set themselves up as a disadvantage. Let them go to their own silo. They're going to be disadvantaged because they're going to put stricter rules on themselves. I don't think so. In fact, Notre Dame doesn't think so. Nobody really thinks this. I mean, the Southeastern Conference might put that one player transfer rule in, but really, if the courts can't, if they're allowed to do this, they might lose a few students in the recruiting wars because the recruit knows if they go to the Southeastern Conference, they might only have that one transfer, but that first transfer they might transfer out of the SEC, and then have multiple transfers in the Big 12. It probably isn't going to hurt them that much. The eligibility rules probably going to be the same throughout. It's the compensation package. The Southeastern Conference is not a poverty conference. We've been trying to explain that. We just saw Ross Dellinger report yesterday where it said the Southeastern Conference expects in early negotiations of the media rights with ESPN. The Southeastern Conference schools are going to be making big bang bucks versus, for example, ACC schools. You already have a gap. You already have a $35 million gap. It's only growing. It's only growing during this media cycle, during these media contracts of the SEC and the ACC. But the SEC is going to be able to renegotiate their current contract. Is the ACC going to be able to renegotiate their Tier 1 contract? No. No. Probably not. So what does that mean? That advantage of the SEC over the ACC, we all know that. We all know that money advantage exists. We all know that. But it's only going to grow. And the compensation rules in the SEC are most likely going to look different than the ACC. And if they're the same, if the ACC makes the same rev share cap or whatever that looks similar to the SEC, they're not going to be able to meet the thresholds like the SEC athletic departments will and can and shall. It's going to be, again, if we're not all in this together and we all separate, you're really going to see a separation of the ability. The rev share cap last year was $20.5 million based upon metrics of the 4 power conferences together, the median average of certain buckets of revenue throughout all 68 schools. If it was the SEC alone, the same metrics would have had the rev share cap somewhere around 28, 29, 30 million. Because the SEC makes so much more money than the Big 12 and the ACC schools. This SEC compensation of their players is going to take on a major dramatic effect if they go on their silo. And that is going to trickle down to the Olympic sports. And Notre Dame perceives that, and it's causing them great danger because Notre Dame is going to have to play by the ACC compensation rules and all the other rules that the ACC draws up. Now, within the ACC, you're going to have Miami. That's going to want high compensation. You're going to want to have a high cap. You're going to, Florida State, there's going to be some schools in there. But a large part of the schools are going to be dampening down that rev share. No. It's going to be a vote, right? It's going to be a vote within the ACC. Most likely than that, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to have bigger, larger compensation, higher compensation rules. And that is going to affect Notre Dame's Olympic sports, not their football program, but their Olympic sports. But that's not the biggest reason that Notre Dame fears the SEC and the Big Ten going in their silos. It's an important one that we just mentioned because Jack Swarbrick said if we cannot compete, he said, forget about basketball and football for a moment. If we cannot compete at the highest level in these other sponsored sports in the ACC, that is one reason we would leave the ACC. Jack Swarbrick said that in public a couple of years ago. I think 2022, I believe in 2022. Google it. But there's a bigger reason that Notre Dame fears the SEC and the Big Ten go in their own silos, conference governance. And that is this, and I've never heard this before. But our Notre Dame source has been talking to the people in South Bend. He's been a long time character in South Bend. Said that Notre Dame's belief is the following. Either we got to become them or they become us. It is belief at Notre Dame that if the SEC goes in the silo and the Big Ten goes in the silo, that the SEC's main consideration, their main challenge is to get cohesiveness within the conference. To get everybody on board, to get enough people on board to make their governance rules, to enforce their governance rules. When a ruling comes down on one of the teams about something that school says, okay, we'll pay the penalty. Cohesiveness, enough togetherness to get through this, to govern themselves. That is going to be the number one challenge for the Southeastern Conference and the Big Ten. There is no more NCAA in this world when it comes to governance, right? It's got to be internal. So the Southeastern Conference is going to be looking internally. The Southeastern Conference is not going to be looking at Notre Dame the same way. The Big Ten's not going to be looking at Notre Dame the same way. They're going to be looking at Notre Dame. This is how Notre Dame perceives it as an option, as a danger. The SEC is going to be worked mighty hard not to have anyone think about becoming the next Notre Dame. The Big Ten is going to do everything they can to make sure that none of their schools become the next Notre Dame. That there is no advantage of being an independent. To bury that idea. Conference rules, conference governance. Again, Notre Dame isn't, as a football independent school, they're going to make their own rules. Now, we don't know how the courts are going to act on it, but they're not going to have market power. They're a school. They make their own rules. A kid signs on the dotted line. That might be perceived as an advantage. If a school is getting upset in the SEC and the Big Ten, they might look at the Notre Dame situation and go, this governance thing ain't working out for us in the Big Ten. Maybe if we're a big enough brand in the Big Ten, maybe we should take the Notre Dame route. I mean, this sounds good on paper. We're going to govern ourselves, but we're getting screwed here. Let's say you're Penn State. Let's say you're Ohio State. Let's say you're Georgia. Let's say you're an LSU, and you got a little bit of a rebel in you. And you're looking at Notre Dame. Notre Dame don't have to answer to anybody. Notre Dame don't have to answer to anybody. They do their own rules. And because of that, because there's now going to be a more adversary relationship between Notre Dame and the Big Ten and the SEC, that the SEC is not going to be looking out to protect Notre Dame. SEC's not going to be going out and protecting Notre Dame's quasi-football independence anymore. The SEC is going to bury Notre Dame's quasi-football independence. And the Big Ten will do us well. That is what Notre Dame believes. In fact, according to the Notre Dame source, the reason why he knows this and the reason why Notre Dame believes this is because this was already talked about. You remember Ross Dellinger during the college football playoff negotiations and the threat of a breakaway at that time from the SEC and the Big Ten. When the SEC and the Big Ten were threatening everybody else that they were going to break away and create their own world, if you do not give us the power to create the college football playoff format as our liking, if you don't let us get more money in the playoff distribution because we provide more eyeballs, when all those threats were going on, Notre Dame was in the room with the Big Ten and the SEC. Ross Dellinger reported that. According to the Notre Dame source 2 nights ago, this is when Notre Dame was told that. If it's a breakaway, it's going to be a breakaway of conferences. It's not going to be a breakaway of conferences and then the possibility of schools becoming independent. It's sort of like how when you create a government agency to solve a problem, and the government agency may be really good. I mean, they're not really good at this, but let's pretend that a government agency is really good at solving an issue. But there's this thing where if the government agency doesn't really want to solve the issue, because if it solved the issue, you don't need the government agency anymore. Anytime you build an organization, that organization, there's a certain part of it that wants to keep living and growing. Well, that's what these conferences are. There's an internal clock in the SEC. There's an internal thing going on at the Big Ten and everywhere else. They don't want it to disappear. What their actions are internally what is best for the institutions, except if it's what's best for the institutions is for them to become independent outside of the conference. So in other words, I don't know, you want to take Star Trek and the Borg or whatever sci-fi or whatever example you want to use, the SEC, Notre Dame perceives this because they've already been told this, that the relationships are going to change if the SEC goes in their own silo. The SEC is going to be looking out for themselves, only themselves. And of course, a lot of people would say that's all they've been doing anyways. But the Southeastern Conference is only going to be looking out for themselves. No more protection of Notre Dame. The Big Ten is going to be looking out for themselves. And it's going to be realpolitik. It's going to be ruthless aggression. You're not going to have the remember, as much as we talk about the NCAA, as much as we throw the stones and the rocks and the arrows at the NCAA, one of the missions of the NCAA was to keep the house as big as possible, to have as many people in the house as possible, a large diversity of schools in the house as possible. So the NCAA, while they gave up a lot of power to the power conferences, they made sure that the minority, that the smaller, powerful groups had some representation somehow, some way. But in this new world of conference governance, the SEC is going to be making their own rules, and it's going to be for the SEC. Notre Dame, according to the Notre Dame source, believes they are screwed. There was a different word used. I'm not going to use that word because this is a family show. Notre Dame, quasi-football independence, is screwed if the SEC goes their own way, because there goes the protection. And nobody's going to want the independence option to be viable. The Big 12's not going to want that. If we want to go talk about a minute about the Brett Yormark, Cody Campbell situation, I jokingly made a comment on X today that maybe Texas Tech should think about going independence, because then Cody Campbell can run everything from his office. Don't have to worry about Brett Yormark. Don't have to worry about the supposedly incompetence of the Big 12 putting a Texas Tech Houston game on a Friday night. If Texas Tech Red Raiders went totally independent, they would control their schedule with whatever media partner they would come up with. But I jokingly said that because we're going to go into a conference governance era. But again, nobody's going to want that. No, the Big 12 really doesn't want Texas Tech to have that option. So these conferences are going to play hardball. They're going to play hardball with the schools that are thinking about going independence. I'm just saying that this is what Notre Dame believes, because this is their world. They've been football independents forever. And they've been studying this, they've been wargaming this, and they've been told this. The last time the Big Ten and the SEC threatened the breakaway, basically the information was delivered saying, if we break away, we're going to be breaking away in conferences. The world of the independent doesn't work for us, brother, our Irish brother. Notre Dame, Bavacqua at the round table, they want a solution. They want the SCORE Act passed. They want that Olympic tax. They want to solve this. But the power is not in their hands. It's not even in the hands of the Big Ten. It's not in the hands of the SEC. We can't govern ourselves. We are a complete mess, and Congress ain't coming to save us. And there ain't no collective bargaining in sight because the labor don't even want it. And the only solution that anybody can see is going their own way, going in their own silos. And again, the Sporticle article released last night talking about the Ivy League victory only gives more power to the forces that want to break away. The people who want to break away in the SEC have become more powerful after last night's victory from the Ivy League. The people in the Big Ten, because the Big Ten's talking about this too. The forces that want to leave the NCAA are becoming even more powerful today than yesterday. In this world, doesn't work for the fighting Irish quasi-football independence. Okay, let's get to your super chats, and then we'll get to your phone calls. Thanks for everybody coming on in. Again, April 3rd, 7:02 p.m. Central Time. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our channel, ring the notification bell, share the video, smash the like button. I do appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. Let's get to the super chats. Very generous super chats. And then we'll get to your phone calls as soon as possible. We've got Christopher Huda, the purple and gold Christopher Huda. $5 holler. So Silo, every conference has a little different NIL, transfer, and enforcement approach that makes end-of-year combined playoffs very problematic. Oh my God! Oh my God! Yeah. And that is why I think the SEC made it perfectly clear that they've already sent this message out a couple of times that if they should happen to do this, they're hoping that other conferences will look at what they're doing in the SEC, talk with the SEC, take in their guidance in the SEC, and have the rules close to what the SEC is doing. Because the playoff situation, I mean, again, how extreme is the breakaway? In other words, does the SEC play 12 conference games in their football schedule? Right away in 2027, 2028? What about the playoffs? What about expansion of the conference? Thank you for the $5 holler, Christopher Hooter. Thank you so much for your generosity. I appreciate it so very much. And we've got Daniel Gorby. Super chat, Daniel Gorby. Thank you for the $5 holler. Florida State softball just run ruled Notre Dame 10-0. Their bridge is really falling down. Holy smokes, Daniel Gorby throwing an elbow at the Irish softball team. My goodness. What Notre Dame's fear is that whatever happens in the SEC compensation rules, whatever happens in the Big Ten compensation rules, when it comes to the Olympic sports, the Big Ten's thinking about the bird rule. The Big Ten's going to have more options, and the SEC's going to have more options. And I'm not trying to bury the ACC. I'm not saying the ACC. I'm from Notre Dame's perspective. It's a big difference between everybody following kind of the same rules versus the SEC and the Big Ten going their own way on their own rules. And then the Notre Dame having all their sponsored sports in the ACC. It's something that Notre Dame is extremely, extremely worried about, and they're war gaming this all out, and it doesn't look good for Notre Dame. Thank you, Daniel Gorby. I appreciate the $5 holler. And we got another super chat. We've got another super chat from Frank Pata. Remember when we decided to fund the Olympics through the student loan program? $500 semester student fees? The University of Minnesota just raised their fees last year to help pay for the rev share and all that. Look, I'm just gonna use Notre Dame as an example. I can use a whole bunch of different examples, but tonight we're focusing on Notre Dame. We've been focusing other places lately. But Notre Dame is very concerned about their other sponsored sports. We know that football is the most important. It's the revenue generator. But Notre Dame, culturally, they've got boosters. They got very important people that support their other programs, and they will not let them fall behind. If they do, their hockey program is way down. They're in the Big Ten. They're having a hard time competing. They just don't have the exposure. Look what the SEC and the Big Ten doing in volleyball, with the volleyball schedule. Look at what the Big Ten Notre Dame has real concerns about it, more than ever. And again, I'm not trying to rip on ACC has 17 wonderful institutions. Some of the athletic departments are rich. Some of them have more money than some schools in the Big Ten. And I'm not trying to bury everything, but from a Notre Dame perspective, the differences between the Big Ten and the ACC, the difference between the SEC and the ACC becomes more dramatic in the world of silos, in the perception of Notre Dame. Thank you for the $10 holler, Frank Potter. Thank you for your generosity. I appreciate you coming on in. I appreciate it very much, sir. Thank you very much. We've got Kenneth Maynard. $10 holler super chat. Texas Tech going independent makes sense. Cody can stick it to Yormark and the P2 and give Notre Dame a viable opponent on this schedule. Morbid curiosity to see what Texas Tech can do with all that oil money. And that's the thing, right? Maybe they can go independent. can we just take a time out here and just talk about the Texas Tech situation? I'm not gonna focus in on that, but let's just use Texas Tech as an example. The big SEC goes their own way. Conference governance. Big 10, conference governance. Big 12, conference governance. 16 teams trying to figure out the rules, trying to figure out the enforcement policy. Now it's even more intense. It's not about all the NCAA. It's not having about all these Division I committees. It's not all trying to figure out the subdivisions. Blah, 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 blah. A waiver here and a waiver. No. The Big 12 is going to make their own rules. Eligibility rules, compensation rules. Who knows? Maybe Cody Campbell's going to say the commissioner can't have anything to do with schedules. Whatever. It's the Big 12. They're going to make their own rules. And if a school just isn't getting along with everybody else, like a Texas Tech, and if they go independent, they don't have to answer to anybody. They don't have to answer to anybody but themselves. They're not going to be governed by Brett Yormark. They're not going to be governed a little bit by Kansas, a little bit by Kansas State, a little bit by Oklahoma State, a little bit by West Virginia, a little bit by UCF, a little bit by Cincinnati. They're going to go their own way. They're going to do their own thing. In Notre Dame, according to the Notre Dame source, he said, we've already been talked to by the Big Ten and the SEC. If they go their own way, they probably won't even play us. I mean, they're not going to allow independence to be a thing, to become a thing, to be an advantage. They were willing for us not to be sucked into their own solar system, but if they go their own way, there ain't going to be nothing there for us to do with them. And so if Texas Tech goes independent, those other Big 12 schools might say, could say, we're not going to play you. We're not going to play you. Something to consider. A lot of drama, look, going independence, there's a lot of hurdles to that. One of them is to be able to get a schedule, and another one is to be able to make enough money. Well, if Texas Tech doesn't have to worry about the money, all they got to worry about is the schedule. Maybe that's a valid option for Texas Tech in the world of conference governance. But we got to keep an eye on this. Going independent is going to be very highly, highly discouraged by the conferences. More than ever. More than ever. This is the thought of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Thank you, Kenneth Maynard. Thank you for the $10 holler. Very much appreciated, sir. Thank you for your generosity, East Carolina Pirate. Thank you very much, MBM Oklahoma State Cowboy. Oklahoma State Cowboy. Silos will lead to breakaways and realignment. Big 10, SEC, Big 12, ACC would turn from conferences into their own leagues with maybe one crossover game. I only care about Oklahoma State, so I'm fine with it. Go Pokes. Go Pokes. Thank you, MBM. 357. You're probably right. Conferences turn into leagues. In other words, conferences turn into divisions, pods. You can do what you want if the conference is governing everything. A whole new world, MBM. Buckle up, brace for impact. Oklahoma State Cowboy. People in Stillwater, though, they do not change. They do not change. They are authentic people. They do not change. Okay. I'll get to a few more of your comments here, but we're going to open up the phone lines. I have been talking and talking and talking. 763 260 1333. 763 260 1333.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. I very much appreciate it.
Yeah, I've just got a question. Is there a way that President Trump can appoint Cody Campbell to be some sort of special envoy to Iran? Just give him some sort of, just give him some sort of job to get him out of everybody's hair, so we don't have to listen to him on sports. I mean, he can. The league should just all tell President Trump, you can do whatever the hell you want. Just send Cody Campbell as an ambassador or something. Just send him to the far corners of the earth and get him out of our hair.
I think Cody Campbell's too busy to do that. He's at the round table. He's in the subcommittee. They're trying to pass the SCORE Act. And you know what my question is, Ryan Thomas? I'm going to ask you this question.
Go ahead.
Because I haven't asked anybody this question. I mean, I haven't asked anybody on this channel this question. I've asked other people this question, which I'm not. Anyways, Big 12. Let's talk about the Big 12.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the BYU Cougars and the Utah Utes and the Colorado Buffaloes. You all know what's going on. You all know that the SEC might be doing this. You all saw what Ivy League victory meant last night and all this. The Big 12's got to be preparing for going their own way, right?
Yeah.
You got to be preparing your own way, and you got to be at least starting to outline particular rules that you would want and something you all can agree on and compromise. Give me your thoughts on that, and whatever you were going to talk about, Ryan Thomas. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that's probably why UConn's back on the table, at least for your mark. I think it's very likely. I know you mentioned that the SEC's early TV window opens up about the same time that the ACC's grant of rights, or not grant, but exit fee dropped substantially. So, I mean, you could see the Big Ten and the SEC taking who they want, and then the rest of the ACC merging with the Big 12, and those would probably be like your three main silos. And, Cody Campbell, I mean, the Big 12 would probably have to be happy to take, Thursday or Friday night games or whatever, and Cody Campbell's just going to have to suck it because, no school, besides Notre Dame knows more about independence than BYU, and it is hard, Greg.
Yeah.
You got to figure out where to put your Olympic sports, and I can tell you, I mean, that would essentially kill all of Texas Tech's Olympic sports.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I mean, it's the problem that Cody Campbell, the guy's acting like he hit a triple when he was born on third. It's sort of it's just realizing that you have to kind of make do with what they have. And I'm not a big fan of this bully mentality. I don't think it really accomplishes anything, and I think it's just sort of it's the ugliness of the culture that we live in right now, and it's dealing with it's just dealing with it. I mean, this executive order is nothing but one of those vegan bean-made burgers with fake cheese, Greg. I mean,
that's why I spent about a minute and 30 seconds on it, because it's not really anything to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the Department of Education's already been significantly downsized. So how the hell is he going to enforce this? Because it's the Department of Education that disperses most of these funds to these universities. So what are you going to do? Are you going to all of a sudden, you're already trying to dismantle the department. So who the hell is going to enforce, withholding funds, and who's going to look into this? Which agency is going to be policing this for the president? Not to mention that, you've got a whole bunch of issues where, constitutional issues, mind you, that, you can't be screwing around with the federal government does not have power to screw around with existing contracts. It's explicit. And it's sort of, I don't think, I think it's a statement, and it's nice that at least there's a presidential, it's nice that he's at least making a statement. But I just don't think Congress, and I don't think the NCAA, I don't think anyone's going to get anything done. I really think what we're headed for, Greg, is we're probably headed for some sort of, like I mentioned, a football playoff subdivision within Division I. And, it will probably be, I've always said it, I've said this before, you may have heard me say this, the Power 2.5. That's probably what it will be, and they'll have their little playoff with each other. It'll probably be the top 24 seeds or whatever it is, or top 24 ranked teams, whatever it is, and, it'll go from there. I think that's just probably the lowest common denominator of what will happen. They probably won't play each other. There might be one crossover game. There may not be, but I just see that's where it's going. As far as Notre Dame goes, Greg, I think that really comes down to how active of a role ESPN wants to meddle with this. If they want to really play a role in this, then it can significantly change it. If they don't, then the bridge is collapsing. I don't know what ESPN wants to do, but I can tell you that they're certainly going to get their fingers on this. They hold Yormark and Phillips by the what.
Yeah.
That's why they haven't said anything. I mean, it really comes down to it. Let's just be honest. It's basically the ESPN and Fox leagues. That's basically what we have, and it may come down to being exactly that. I think so much is fluid right now. As far as expansion goes, Greg, there's a lot of stuff fluid there, but when it comes down to, when you think about the overall bigger issues of governance and NIL and trying to get all those rules in place, all these state political issues, whether in North Carolina or Virginia, are petty and minuscule, because once that bigger chessboard gets set, those states are going to have no choice but to fall in line if they want to save their schools. I just think that, whatever the discussion is, I do think the SEC is dithering too much and screwing around too much on North Carolina, because, they got to pull the trigger. And the reason why I say that is, Duke and UVA are pretty close. And UNC, those three are pretty close. And I can tell you that if Duke and UVA start trying to, petition and try to get themselves into the Big Ten in some way, I think that, they're going to work behind the scenes in whatever time they have to try to, flip the board again at UNC. So, I mean, the SEC needs to quit dicking around, and Florida and Georgia need to get over their FSU hate, because, I can't. Sorry, SEC fans, plug your ears. But if the Big Ten gets Miami and FSU and Notre Dame, the SEC, it's a second-rate league at that point. You're screwed. You're screwed. You're going to have a league that's going to have way more money than you do. Will be getting $20-30 million more a year than you do. And they're going to be recruiting in your backyard, playing down in Florida. And what if they grab a Georgia Tech? And what if they go into Texas somewhere? I mean, the SEC is going to have big problems if they let the Big Ten make that kind of coup. So, the longer you screw around Sankey, and I'm okay with Sankey destroying himself because he's kind of a prick. But I mean, but the longer the SEC screws around with this, the Big Ten. I mean, if they get that coup, they're going to be making, if they have Notre Dame and FSU and Miami in there, they're going to be making $20-30 million more a year in media revenue than the SEC. And that's going to grow, and they're going to be in the backyard of the SEC recruiting. And, and they're already doing well in the playoff picture. Maybe SEC fans need to check their ego a little bit and realize, you either let Clemson and those guys in, but if you lose those guys to the Big Ten because you don't think you need them or you think you're better than them, boy, you are the most short-sighted, stupid people on earth, and you deserve to fail if that's how you think. And Darwin has a way of fixing things, Greg. But anyway, that's all I have tonight. Great show. All I can say is, who knows what's going to happen? All I can say, Greg, is if you become a Badger fan, the Minnesota Gophers will be the 2026-27 NCAA football champions.
That's probably
anyway,
what
take
would
care,
happen.
Greg. Bye.
Probably what would happen, unfortunately. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate the phone call. Ryan Thomas, BYU Cougar. He's going to be watching Superman. Barrett Bachmeier.
From
Larry Andrick.
Larry Andrew, can you hold on for just one moment, please?
Sure.
I do appreciate it. I appreciate your patience, sir. Joe Long, you can't speak for Notre Dame because you have one source, Greg. Sorry. You are correct. I cannot speak for Notre Dame. I cannot speak for Notre Dame. Hopefully you're still watching this because you made that comment a while ago. I cannot speak for Notre Dame. I only can speak about the source that I have. But it's not your ordinary source. It's not our first rodeo. You can go ahead and Google this if you want, Joe, but it's in November 18th, 2015, I put out a post that said it's very difficult to imagine, but according to source, which is our Notre Dame source, Delaney is again going down the Notre Dame rabbit hole to try to bring Notre Dame hockey to the Big Ten. And then we broke this information on Minnesota 247. A couple months later, Don Lucia, the head coach of the Gophers. Great news for Big Ten hockey. Notre Dame makes the Big Ten stronger conference. Welcome. Now, this source was able, and I was very fortunate to get this information. Nobody else was writing anything about that particular event. So, again, I cannot speak for Notre Dame. I do not know what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. But this Notre Dame source has been around for a long time. I've been around a long time. We've known each other for a long time. And if he says that Notre Dame perceives themselves as screwed, if the SEC goes in their silo, I'm gonna pay attention to it. But it's up to it. Anybody that listens to this information, it is completely up to you whether you wanna. It's your choice. I don't force anybody to believe anything. I don't even force anybody to believe the Grays are here. The Grays are here. UAP, UFO. Larry Andrick, the floor is yours. Thank you for your patience, sir.
Hey, thanks, Greg. I just got a couple things. First, I just wanted to let you know that if you put $5 down on the Mountaineers this year on the over, I think it's a lock. That's my first and only statement on the Mountaineers for right now.
Greg the Gold. You believe in Greg the Gold this year. Let's go.
I hope so.
right.
That's going to be hard, but I trust that one now.
What is the win total? 5.5 or?
Yeah, 5.5.
Okay.
I'm looking for 8-9, at least. I really am. But other than that, I told you about a year and a half ago that I thought the only way that these teams weren't going to go into silos, well, I didn't even know about silos at that time, but, the only way to save college football was for the government to set up an entity for college football that had total control over the P4. And I still believe that. I think this committee, the Congress ought to set up that control committee and make it a year-round thing where they have a year-round governance of college sports. Not government-controlled, but controlled something like the NCAA, but not have anybody... Not presidents and not ADs and not college coaches, people that just know college sports, know what should be, and know that what it would take for the sport itself to remain a sport rather than what it's becoming. I think if we go into silos, it may be it's going to be a totally different sport than what everybody knows. And I'm like the Oklahoma State guy. If it goes into silos, the only team I'm going to even look at is West Virginia from now on, because that's the only team I'd be interested in. It's not a college sport anymore. It's going to be more like the NFL.
Yeah.
It's going to be two conferences that are so far ahead of everybody else in money and all that it's not going to be worth watching. I would rather watch competition across all college sports. That's what it's about. If you got 4 Division I schools or 4, your 4 main conferences, let them be you can't say equal, because West Virginia's never going to make the money that Ohio State does. But if they all get the same money, say from the ESPNs and the CBSs and all that, it puts them more on an equal basis. But the boosters and all that are still going to outspend West Virginia by a ton. It's like, the only team that could probably keep up would be Texas Tech in the Big 12. Miami, they're all going to still get, a lot more money. Georgia and Alabama and LSU and all those are still going to get a lot more money. Michigan, you name them. You can name the teams that's got the money. But if everybody got the same in the distribution model, then everybody would have at least a decent chance to come up with a good football team, every other year, every few years. It wouldn't be the same old, this team's going to be there this year, this team's going to be there next year. We know who's going to win. We know who's going to be there. You can name 10 teams that'll be in the playoffs every year right now. I don't care. You can name them. Everybody can. And it doesn't make it. Everybody roots for the underdog, and there's very few of them that have a chance to beat these teams. But if you have an equal distribution, and I think the biggest thing that the teams across the country did was give the SEC and the Big Ten that right for the bidding wars to make the rules for the playoffs. That I thought was the most stupid thing that any conferences could ever done. I'd have fought them on it. They could have broke away. They could have went their own way before I'd ever give them the right to do what they did.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not fair, not right in football. In college football, it's not right. The teams that got a lot of money, they're going to get a lot of money. You know, they're going to get it other ways. You figure Ohio State sells out about every game in the season for 110,000 students or people. West Virginia has a 60,000 stadium, which is a big stadium for most college games. You got probably 10 stadiums in the country bigger than West Virginia, or maybe 12 or so. But it's still a small stadium compared to the 10 or 12 that are a lot bigger. But I think college football is a sport. It is not who has the most money. That's the thing that bothers me the most. I'm sorry I ran on again about, but I get this urge every once in a while just to rant because it's the only thing we can do.
That's what I'm here for. That is what we are here for, Larry. Can I ask you a Mountaineer question?
Sure.
There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of excitement for a running back who's going to be wearing West Virginia Mountaineer uniform named Cam Cook, transferred from Jacksonville State. What's the steam on Cam Cook during practice here? Has there been any reports about Cam Cook?
Great. He is ahead of schedule. He looks better than anything that they've seen for years.
Okay, here we go, baby. Here we go, Larry.
And we've also got a wide receiver that came from USC because he got hurt last year. He didn't play. Mm-hmm. Prince Strong.
Got it.
And he is expected to be one of the best receivers in the country this year.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
Along with another transfer that's been there for 2 years, has been hurt from Oklahoma State. There's going to be 2 number 1 receivers for West Virginia this year.
Wow.
Period.
There you go. 1A, 1B in Morgantown.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. And the quarterbacks are ahead of schedule. And neither one is breaking away from the other.
Scotty Fox and Michael Hawkins?
Yep, they say Scotty Fox is better than he was last year. He's jumped to his sophomore year, and they say that the guy from Oklahoma has picked it up faster than they expected, and they're both really just battling each other, and they're friends. They seem to be friends. There's no animosity. It's just all friendly competition, and they're ahead of schedule. And I tell you what, with our offensive line, they spent $4 million just on the line this year. And not only that, they brought Rick Trickett back he is probably, if not the best line coach in America, he's one of the top 5. He's been in the game for years. He sent over 40 linemen to the NFL in his career. He is the best, one of the best there ever was. He's 78 years old. He's not going to be doing it much longer, but as long as he can do it, he's going to be one of the best. I think everybody is way underestimating West Virginia this year.
There we go. There we go. That's what I wanted to hear from Mr. Andrick.
If the defense comes along like I think it's going to, we're going to be fine. I mean, more than fine. And the other things are, we have a couple of freshmen that are going to start, I think, or at least be number 2 on the depth chart, and maybe 3.
What position?
We have one is tailback. What's his name? From Georgia. He's a freshman. He was a high 4-star. He came from Wisconsin. His brother played at Wisconsin, and he's in there. He's in West Virginia this year. And he came to West Virginia, and his brother entered the portal and came to West Virginia to play with him. Amari Lattimore.
Got it. Yes.
And he is looking like he could overtake Cook, which is nobody's even said that. I mean, he is doing that great as a freshman. He is breaking tackles. They're both breaking tackles and just hitting the holes. They're going to be a number 1 and number 2 punch. It looks like that when Cook, and I'm just so far from what I understand and what I've heard and seen. They're going to be the sleeper team of the Big 12 this year.
You're just being realistic, right? You're being realistic. You're just giving us you're just giving us the common sense Mountaineer. There's no propaganda in this, Larry Andrick. There's no propaganda in this. The Mountaineers are a dangerous team this year.
I really think if you got $100 that you want to increase a little bit, put it on the over. You can't lose. I don't believe.
You can't lose. You can't lose.
I can't. I just don't think you can.
Unless Greg the Cooler gets out. Yeah, you're right. Let's go.
I love you, Greg.
Love
Everything
you too, Larry.
about your show. I don't miss it. A lot of times I have to catch it on feedback because it's dinner time a lot of times when you're on.
You're not missing anything, Larry.
But I really appreciate your show, and you keep it up, buddy.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Andrew.
Bye-bye.
Beautiful call. Absolutely beautiful call. Mr. Mountaineer, Larry Andrick. Beautiful. I don't think Dante's Inferno Purgatory, I don't think Larry Andrick is scared of Greg the Cooler. I don't think he's scared at all. MBM, Larry is pulling on the shine. You can't lose. I love those words. Gotta skip over that one. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. I do want to thank Zero Wiz, Ricky Tungate, massive super chat, Jim Austin, Larry Andrick, Christopher Huda, Daniel Gorby, Frank Patel, Kenneth Amina, MBM for your generosity. I do appreciate it. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our channel. Ring that notification bell.
From
Patron is on the line. The floor is yours. Patron, can you just give me 1 second here?
Always.
I appreciate it. I'm getting a lot of people sending me messages during the live show about, did you read Jim Phillips' comment on the president executive order? Did you read Brett Yormark's comment? Did you read Tony Petitti's comment? Kind of. I kind of scanning it. They're all the same thing. Thank you, Mr. President. We're trying to stabilize college football, but it doesn't really change. Even Cody Campbell applauded President. Cody Campbell and Brett Yormark's statement looked the same and all that, but I happen to think, and I might be wrong. I just don't happen to think, other than announcing that it happened, and the effective date is August 1st. I don't think it's all that newsworthy, to be honest with you. But go ahead, Patron. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't think it's terribly newsworthy either. So anyways, Greg, I don't have a whole lot to say, but the one thing I was going to say is, I've been a proponent of the silo for quite a while. not just a proponent necessarily, but I just kind of think it's the like logical or natural evolution of college football, given all of the structural changes that we've had, with the player compensation, this settlement, that settlement. But I'll try to shift away from what I perceive to be a lot of doom and gloom. A lot of people have a lot of doom and gloom about, the silo is going to be so bad and we're not going to watch it. I mean, I think actually, like, I'll try to be positive here. I think it's actually going to lead to a pretty good product. A couple of things I would think is, okay, probably you're not going to get any FCS game. You're not going to get any cupcake game. If you're going to be playing all conference schedule, I mean, that's a pretty good meaty schedule for whatever team that you follow in the Power 3 or Power 4. And I think personally, Greg, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the ball out as far as I can here. I think you're going to see 3 silos when it's all said and done. There's going to be like, sort of a stepwise process of getting to what I'm about to say, but you're going to have 3 silos, Big 10, SEC, Big 12. Everybody's teams, unless you're G5, are going to be in these, and it's going to be 24 teams each in each silo. And I wouldn't be surprised if they divide it up into some kind of like division. So if the SEC will have 4 divisions of 6 teams, Big 10 will have 4 divisions of 6 teams, Big 12 will have 4 divisions of 6 teams, and you'll play like the 5 teams in your division, plus like a rotating 2 from each of the other conferences. So that's like 6 plus 5, that's 11, plus 1 permanent rival to make sure you keep your permanent rivalries. And there you go. That's your 12-game conference schedule. And then what you'll have is like your own internal playoff. Like, I think all the conversation about SEC championship going away is a moot point with the silo, because they'll just have their own SEC playoff, and you'll have like a 8-team conference playoff. So you just need to finish in the top third of the conference. Basically, you can win your division or come in second place, which is like the wild card. And you'll have like for the SEC, I think it'll be something like this. You'll have the quarterfinals will be at the home field of the higher seed, like the division winner. So if you win your division, you get a home playoff game. The semifinals, they will do at like you could do it at like Georgia Dome or Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, where they host the SEC championship, and probably Jerry World. And the SEC championship, which they will bill as the national championship, is going to be the Sugar Bowl, which will be prime time January 1st. And they're going to try to cultivate that into an event, just like how the Super Bowl is an event or March Madness is like an event. They're going to try to market Sugar Bowl as a prime time event on January 1st. And similarly, the Big Ten, they're going to do the same thing, except their quarterfinal, their semifinal is going to be one at Indianapolis, one at Las Vegas, the Raider Stadium, and their championship game is going to be the Rose Bowl. And they're going to try to market that as the real national championship. They're going to say, well, this is the Rose Bowl. It's a national league, coast to coast, the granddaddy of them all. They're going to have Joel Klatt out there. He's going to say, this is the real national champion. There's the tradition that's built in. So they're going to build that as their national championship. And then the Big 12, I don't think people should be disappointed or view it as like a junior league. It's going to exist. It's going to have a lot of the current ACC teams in it. And they're going to be a national league as well if they go all the way and take UConn and these other East Coast teams. And they'll have the same thing, and it'll be up to them when they want to put their national champion, if Brett Yormark wants to use some unconventional timing or non-traditional date. But I actually think, Greg, it's going to be entertaining. And as people have pointed out in the chat, there's a huge appetite for this reality TV soap opera element of the sport. We see it in the NFL. We see it in the NBA. And this is just going to lead to another type of controversial thing that all the podcasters can spend an entire month talking about, who's the best out of the 3 teams. But anyways, that's my spiel. That's my sort of forecast for where I think things will end up in the future. Thanks for letting me talk, Greg.
You got it, buddy. You might be on something, or you might be on to something, Patron. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Interesting. Patron with another Patreon with another very interesting call. Jason Spangler, the more I hear about silos, just another way to try and circumvent labor laws, dead on arrival. You know, sometimes I think we're like the way we did college sports for decades. I mean, that was extreme, right? That was extreme. We did not allow these student athletes to make money on their name, image, and likeness like other students. But I don't think we can allow, but I think right now the pendulum has swung the other way. And we got to find a happy medium. You know, there are, example, I'm going to use pro wrestling. Pro wrestling. I don't know if Jason Spangler is a pro wrestling fan, but those professional wrestlers, is that against labor laws? It's not what, if I was a wrestler, I would want to be, I'm not sure, but I probably would feel better if I was part of a union. But again, pro wrestlers are not part of a union. They're independent contractors. But does that violate labor laws? In other words, do these players, student athletes, really, I mean, is the only solution that they're in a collective bargaining agreement, a part of a union? Is that the argument now? Because it seems like that's the argument from many people. For me, when I did my very first episode ever, I called for a CBA. That's what I wanted. It was the manifesto, the very first episode I ever did. Because I thought that was best for the student athlete. And in some ways, I still think it is, but I can see the complexities in it. Absolutely incredibly complex. And I'm not sure it is best for the student athletes, for many of them. Some of them, yes, some of them, no. And you would have to have a collective bargaining agreement for all different shapes and sizes. It would be unbelievably more complex than the NBA, the NFL, the NHL. And I'm wondering, are we just like, I don't want us to go backwards, but I also don't want to force something that just isn't going to work either, and in which the student athletes don't even want. The majority of them don't even want it. And anything besides that is really not, is circumventing labor laws? I don't think so. I worked as a consultant for a commercial print company. I worked for them as an employee, worked for them not as an employee. There's different ways to get paid. There's different ways to have the interest. I don't know. I do fear, though, that in politics, and if we're going to, like the political parties, the Republicans are taking it this way, and the Democrats are taking it this way. And of course, we can't get to the middle because that would be sacrilege. That would be, going against our values and da-da-da. So here we are. We can't get a compromise. We can't come up with a compromise. To me, it's discouraging. Spangler, I agree it swung too far the other way, but in no other industry are some people who live some places are entitled to different work standards than others. My point, it has to be one entity. Good comment. The leagues are the bad guys too if they do silos, aka breakaway. Tom DeBay, silos will water down college football. I like having multiple professional wrestling associations. Each will matter less. Tony, Greg, I don't care what the little general says. You don't remind me of Jerry Blackwell. Look, I wish I did remind you of Jerry Blackwell. An incredible professional wrestler. An incredible character. The man could go in the ring. His promos were a little weak. But he was a great villain, he was a great heel, and he was a great face. The little bit short times that he did the face work, he was outstanding. So I wish the little general did tell you, Tony, that I reminded her of Jerry Blackwell. Kenneth Maynard, Super Chat. Kenneth Maynard, Super Chat. $5 holler, Kenneth Maynard. Non-conference games for P4 should be one versus another. Non-conference P4. Maybe an all in-state rival and two versus the G6 opponents. No FCS body bags. Yeah, that whole that whole scheduling thing. If we go into our silos, I think that's the canary in the coal mine. I think that's I don't know. I don't even know what to say, because if all this happens, and it sure looks like it's going to, there's a big difference between the Southeastern Conference declaring that they're going to play 12 conference games, SEC competition only, versus the SEC saying these are our rules. We are going to be checking out everybody else's rules, and we're going to look at it. We're going to determine it at another date. But right now, we're going to keep our non-conference schedule the way they are. Let's go. Let's keep with the 12-team playoffs. Everything's kumbaya. But we're going to make our own rules, and we're going to have 9 conference games. There's a big difference between 9 conference games and 12 conference games. If the SEC comes out and say, we're only going to play each other because we don't want to play anybody that's playing by a different rule, then we are entering a whole new world. And I think it's going to be dramatic, and I think it's going to be bad in the long run, possibly bad in the short run. But my goodness. Thank you, Kenneth Maynard. Thank you for the $5 holler. I appreciate it. All right, everybody. I think that's about it. We've been on the air for 2 hours and 13 minutes. I do want to thank once again Zero Wiz, Ricky Tungate, Jimmy Austin, Larry Andrick, Christopher Hooter, Daniel Gorby, Frank Pata, Kenneth Mena, MBM, for your generosity. I very much appreciate it. The phone calls were outstanding. Patron, Larry Andrick, Ryan Thomas, who was the other call? That was going gun blazing. I don't remember. But anyways, I want to thank all of you for being part of the PATC family. We're going to be coming on this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, April 4th, April 5th. I've been poking and prodding on this Notre Dame stuff. There's other stuff percolating, but I felt like we had enough to go on with today. We keep pushing the envelope. We keep getting more of a clarity on what is going on. And that's how we're going to keep it for tonight. But make sure you are notified. Ring the notification bell, because we could come on live at any time tomorrow, Saturday, April 4th, Sunday, April 5th. We're coming on live. Buckle up and brace for impact. During the weekend, we're going to release our Big 12 way too early order of finish prediction, and we're going to absolutely nail it here at Peek Around the Corner, because no longer is it Greg the Gold, no longer is it Greg the Cooler, it's Greg the Gold. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much. And as always, God, family, Golden Gophers.